And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we're looking at the Washington Commanders offseason plan and what are some of the moves that the Washington Commanders should explore this offseason to really maximize this football team heading into next season. And so we're looking at an ESPN article, and this was written here by ESPN insider John Keim, and just talking about how the Washington Commanders can take the next step. And so I guess he did get a chance to maybe talk to some NFL executives. And one of these executives said that maybe the Washington Commanders would go out and they would add another running back, perhaps that has more speed and playmaking ability to go alongside of Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. Another executive said that Jaden Daniels really has covered up a lot of stink for this football team, saying that the offensive line is not good. It shows the league what can happen when you have that guy. And so starting with these two comments. And so first with the fact that the Washington Commanders should go out and maybe get a running back. And so I do agree with that. I think that the Washington Commanders are more than likely going to get a running back via the draft. I think that that makes a little bit more sense there. As far as the free agents that they could perhaps bring in, I've talked about Aaron Jones. I've talked about Najee Harris as a player and Javonte Williams out of Denver. These are players that I'm thinking maybe could fit with what the Washington Commanders like to do offensively. But I think it's going to be more something where the Washington Commanders can really upgrade the running back room in day 2 or 3 of the draft. And so I think that they would be taking a huge swing if they went at pick 29 for a running back. But certainly I think that that is something that does make sense for this football team. And as far as this other executive kind of throwing shade at us here on the offensive line, look, I think that our offensive line personally was a very good offensive line. I think that it absolutely can get better. Make no mistake about it. But I think that they did a good job as far as opening up running lanes for Jaden Daniels. And yes, I know he's very creative in being, an escape artist and kind of getting out of the pocket, and making plays. But make no mistake about it. I mean, they did also do some things up front, which allowed our football team to really dominate in the time of possession. And so, yes, do you want to get better at the offensive line? Yes, I think that that is something that the Washington Commanders are certainly going to do in the NFL draft. I think they're going to do that again. And you have to give Adam Peters a lot of credit because Brandon Coleman played very well this year. And so he clearly knows what he's doing when it comes down to building the offensive line. So I think that that's going to be just fine. And I don't think that protection for Jaden Daniels was the issue either. I do agree with the fact that you want to go ahead and you want to get that offensive line ready. Clearly, defenses are going to play a bit different. And so, yes, you do want to maximize the time that he is going to need to have in the pocket. But I would say next, talking about Terry McLaurin, I'd say that that is an obvious thing that the Washington Commanders absolutely have got to figure out. They need to get a number 2 to go alongside of Terry McLaurin. We have talked about this before. I've talked about some of the wide receivers that maybe the Washington Commanders could trade for. We've talked about maybe T. Higgins is a player that maybe the Washington Commanders would swing for via free agency. But make no mistake about it. I mean, there's other plays that the Washington Commanders can make. I think that they could maybe go out. They could get Godwin over from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that that maybe makes a lot of sense if they can get him. I think that he would be very good for us if they could get Chris Godwin. Another player out there, we've talked about him before. Keenan Allen is another veteran player that maybe they do bring in. I think maybe that makes a little sense. DeAndre Hopkins talked about how he's been linked there with, Cliff Kingsbury. So maybe that makes some sense there. I mean, he's a player that maybe could come over. And so just looking at a couple free agents, but if they're going to go ahead and make a trade, I just talked about the fact that maybe they go with DK Metcalf. We know that Cooper Kupp is going to be available. I think that Devontae Adams is absolutely going to be available. And that's if the Washington Commanders want to really take a swing here. And then also, too, we know that probably more than likely Debo Samuel is going to be available as well. We know that, he has a little history there with Adam Peters. And so I don't know if they necessarily go that route. I think from a cost effective situation, you would go after Debo Samuels, but we'll see what happens. And so, that is ways that I think that this Washington Commanders certainly upgrades the team there via free agency and maybe the draft. And so next up, just looking at the free agents and talking about how will they spend in free agency. And so, look, we know that the Washington Commanders are in a good situation as far as the cap is concerned, but make no mistake about it. I mean, this team was really built with getting some players over that certainly, helped us compete at a high level. But unfortunately, some of these players were definitely free agents. In fact, we had a lot of free agents on this team that really helped us out. And so initially, when I'm thinking about it, I think of, at least two players that I think were a huge impact for us. And so I think one, Bobby Wagner is a player that I'd love to have back for the Washington Commanders if he wants to come back, which I think he more than likely does. I think that Zach Ertz, he had a resurgent year with this. And so I think that, certainly he would be a player that I would welcome back, even though I know that we do have Ben Sinnott there as well waiting. And so I think he's going to be a terrific player once he gets an opportunity. You got a player like Jeremy Chin. He was a free agent as well. And I just think that the bottom line is this, you have him. You also have, I think, Dante Fowler Jr. is another player as well. And so you have got to make sure that you get the free agents back, that really continue to keep, I think, just the foundation that Coach Quinn and really this front office has set. And so that's important. And then for the players that aren't coming back, you have to figure out, ways to replace them, which means that you don't just go out and get anybody in free agency. And so I think that that's something that really nobody talks about. You have to make sure that you get the right free agents back here. And so make sure that we take a look at that. And then as far as the trades and situations that they could do on the defensive end, we know that defensively, this team is definitely going to need some help up front. And Myles Garrett certainly fits that. How much the Washington Commanders want to, really allocate to get Myles Garrett, I think is going to be interesting. And also, too, the Cleveland Browns are saying that they don't want to give him up. And so we'll see what happens there. But certainly, I do think that there is an opportunity for the Washington Commanders to make a play for a defensive player as well. I think him. You have also, too, Trey Hendrickson. I think that he will also maybe be available as well if the Cincinnati Bengals don't figure that out. And so there are some opportunities maybe the Washington Commanders can take advantage of. We'll see what happens with Max Crosby as well. I know that's something that's not talked about, but I think it could come into play too. And so next up, we just talked about the players that they more than likely will maybe hold on to that are free agents. But as far as players that are under contract, I think it still remains interesting to me what this Washington Commanders team is going to do with Jonathan Allen. I think it's no big secret that they can save $16.8 million. In this article, they're talking about Andrew Wiley as well, where you can save $7.7 million here with him. And so, look, I think that the Washington Commanders might be in play to make a play like that. And just initially, when I think about it, I think that Jonathan Allen is a player that maybe they're going to try to trade first before they would actually just outright waive him. But we'll see what happens with that. I could see that Adam Peters would maybe try to be creative in that situation there. Maybe he's dangled in a trade where the Washington Commanders are able to maybe trade down in the draft and get some multiple draft picks that way. A lot of people are thinking maybe they would do something to trade up, but maybe they want to trade down. And so I think that that is maybe something to really look at if they're looking to maybe do something with Jonathan Allen. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking about this. Do you think that, yes, the Washington Commanders are absolutely going to go after a wide receiver, defensive player via trade and make a huge swing? Are they going to upgrade these positions via draft, which I think are also on the table as well? Either way, the Washington Commanders will need to play this smartly, and I think that this is the right front office to do so. They've shown thus far that they know what they're doing, which is great. We love that as Washington fans, and I'm so excited to see how they are going to maximize this window with Jaden Daniels, especially with him being on this rookie year or rookie contract, I should say. And so, anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking. And as I always say all the time, go Commanders, and I will see you on the next one. All right. Peace.